I promise you, I'd like to say the hardest part of making money is when people who didn't see the hustle say you're an overnight success. It just makes you want to get in the ring with a hater. Don't you just hate it when people choose to mind your business and not theirs? Now they crossed a boundary and they're in your personal space. Hence why we both have gloves on and are trying to knock each other out. I'm just trying to be funny. That's not the hard part.
The hardest part is what happens before money starts coming in, because people often imagine money as the finish line. If I can just make more money, everything will change. If I can just earn more, life becomes easier. If I can just reach a certain amount, my problems disappear. But life has a strange way of teaching people something different, because money rarely arrives immediately. Before the results, before the income, before the success, there's usually a phase that almost nobody talks about. A phase where nothing seems to be happening. A phase where you're trying, learning, working, sacrificing, and seeing almost no visible results. That phase destroys more dreams than failure itself, because people can handle hard work surprisingly well. What people struggle with is uncertainty. Human beings naturally want proof. Proof that efforts matter. Proof that progress exists. Proof that sacrifices are leading somewhere. And when that proof doesn't appear quickly, doubt starts entering quietly. You start asking questions. Am I wasting my time? Am I doing the wrong thing? Why is everybody else moving faster? Why does success seem easier for other people? And honestly, these thoughts are incredibly common because social media has changed people's expectations completely. People now see overnight success stories constantly. Young millionaires, fast businesses, instant fame, luxury lifestyles. And after enough exposure, many people begin believing success happens quickly. But what social media rarely shows is the invisible part, the years nobody noticed, the mistakes, the uncertainty, the rejection, the periods where people felt lost. Nobody uploads day 700 of struggling quietly. Nobody posts still learning, still failing, still uncertain. People usually show outcomes. They rarely show the process, and this creates dangerous expectations because real progress often looks painfully ordinary. You learn a skill, you improve slightly, you practice again, you improve a little more. Nothing dramatic happens. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and externally, life can appear almost unchanged. That's psychologically difficult because human beings are emotional creatures. We want rewards. We want evidence. We want results. Now imagine someone learning a new skill. Maybe they're learning video editing, coding, sales, business, content creation. At first, they feel excited. Motivation feels high. Everything feels possible. But then reality appears. Progress becomes slower than expected. Mistakes happen constantly. Improvement feels invisible. And suddenly, the excitement starts disappearing. Not because the dream changed, but because emotions changed. This is where many people stop. Not because they lack ability, but because they become discouraged during the invisible stage. And honestly, this invisible stage might be the hardest part of making money, because making money often requires becoming someone new before receiving rewards for becoming that person. Think about that carefully. A person may need discipline before success arrives, patience before income arrives, consistency before opportunities arrive, confidence before proof exists, and that feels backwards emotionally. People want confidence after results. People want motivation after success. But often, those qualities are required before success appears. Now here's another difficult truth. Making money usually asks people to tolerate being misunderstood. This part hurts emotionally because when you're trying something new, not everyone understands what you're doing. Maybe you're building a business, creating content, learning skills, working toward long-term goals. Sometimes people around you may question your choices. Sometimes they may not understand your vision. Not because they're bad people, but because people often trust what feels familiar, stable routines, predictable outcomes, visible results. Dreams feel uncertain, and uncertainty makes people uncomfortable. So while you're trying to build something, you may hear things like, "Is this really worth it? Why don't you just do something safer? Are you sure this will work?" Now, sometimes these questions come from care. Sometimes they come from doubt. But either way, they can affect you emotionally because deep down, you might already be asking yourself those same questions privately. And when external doubt meets internal doubt, things become difficult. Now, let's talk about another hard part of making money: delayed gratification. Human beings naturally prefer immediate rewards. It makes sense psychologically. If someone offers you a reward today or a reward later, your brain often wants the immediate option. And modern life has intensified this tendency. Fast food, fast entertainment, instant delivery, instant purchases, instant dopamine. Everything feels immediate now. But money growth usually rewards patience. Investments take time. Businesses take time. Skills take time. Trust takes time. Reputation takes time. And this creates conflict between modern habits and long-term success because waiting emotionally feels uncomfortable, especially when sacrifices are involved. You may feel like you're working hard while other people seem to be enjoying life more. You may feel like you're missing out. You may wonder if discipline is worth it. And honestly, almost everyone experiences these thoughts at some point. Now, here's something even more difficult. Sometimes, making money changes your relationship with people. Not always, but sometimes. Because growth changes priorities. Your habits change. Your mindset changes. Your time becomes more intentional. And occasionally, people around you may not understand those changes. That can create distance, not because anyone is wrong, but because growth sometimes shifts direction, and direction affects relationships. Now, another thing nobody talks about enough is the hardest part of making money is often staying mentally stable while building something uncertain, because uncertainty creates emotional pressure, a lot of pressure. Questions constantly appear. What if this doesn't work? What if I'm wasting years? What if I fail? What if I disappoint myself? What if I disappoint people I care about? Those questions can become exhausting because uncertainty drains emotional energy. And sometimes people quit not because the opportunity disappeared, but because emotional exhaustion became stronger than hope. Now, here's the interesting part. Many successful people eventually look back and realize the hardest moments weren't necessarily financial, they were psychological. Believing without proof, continuing without results, trying again after disappointment, managing fear, managing doubt, managing loneliness, managing uncertainty. Because success often requires emotional endurance before financial rewards appear. Now, here's an important truth. People often think they need endless motivation, but motivation is unreliable. Some days you'll feel inspired. Other days you won't. Some days you'll feel confident. Other days you'll feel uncertain. And if progress depends entirely on motivation, consistency becomes difficult. That's why habits matter more. Habits continue when emotions fluctuate. Habits continue when excitement disappears. Habits continue during boring days. And honestly, boring consistency often creates extraordinary results. Now, let's talk about comparison. Because comparison quietly destroys progress, especially today. You open social media and suddenly everyone seems successful. People post wins, luxury, achievements, results. Rarely struggles, rarely fear, rarely uncertainty. And if you're in the middle of building something difficult, comparison becomes emotionally dangerous because suddenly your normal progress feels inadequate. Your small improvements feel insignificant. Your journey feels slower than everyone else's. But remember this, you are usually comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's highlight reel. That comparison is unfair from the beginning. Now, here's perhaps the biggest truth in this entire conversation. The hardest part of making money is not really making money. It's becoming the person capable of creating and handling it. Because money often follows value, and value often follows growth. Growth in discipline, growth in skills, growth in emotional control, growth in patience, growth in thinking. And growth rarely feels comfortable while it's happening. It feels messy, uncertain, slow, sometimes lonely, sometimes frustrating. But eventually, something interesting happens. The skills improve, the confidence grows, the process becomes familiar, results start appearing, and suddenly people looking from the outside may say, "Wow, you got lucky." But they never saw the invisible part, the difficult part, the hardest part, the part where you kept moving even when nothing seemed to be happening. Because sometimes success isn't built during the moments where everything works. Sometimes it's built during the moments where everything feels uncertain and you keep going anyway.
If this video helped you see money differently, subscribe for more videos about financial freedom, investing, wealth psychology, and building a better future one decision at a time.